Welcome to the Shrink Show.
Okay, yes, girl. So we just wanted to be a kind of a conversation, and we'll go from there. So I have the ADHD, and that means that I tend to not take time to read and review things very often. So Jamie gives me the Cliff Notes version of the novel story that I need to know, which is you. And she gave me the Cliff Notes version, and I'm already like so excited because here you are speaking out as somebody, with your own mental health struggles, speaking out and using your struggles to empower others to either understand other struggles or, be okay within their own struggles. So I don't want to do all the talking. I need to shut up and want you to talk. And that was nice.
I just see it's wonderful. I'm in awe. Like, I just want to give you a standing ovation. Be like, yes, can you call my mom and just tell her that? Like, just call her and be like, your son is inspiring others and empowering people. He is not a deadbeat. You have to stop. No, my mom is very, very proud of me now. Right. But like in the beginning, she could have used that phone call. And in fact, I love telling this story. My mom, to this day, here it's 2023, to this very day, when people's like, what does your son do for a living? She's like, well, he hosts a podcast, but it's a podcast that makes money. She adds that in every single time. Like, Mom, why do you do that? And she's like, because I want them to know you're successful and that you don't live in my basement. I'm like, not all podcasters live in basements. She's like, well, but most of them. And then I don't have an argument for that. I think an awful lot of podcasters do live in basements. Do they? Rent is cheap, huh? Housing market is so terrible. I think I can get a nice basement and all you have to do is a podcast for it. I think that's a good deal.
Yeah. Maybe I should just get a bunch of basements for podcasters to rent. Actually, yeah, that'd be a smart investment. I thought it would be a good idea. I think it was a business spoke up top, right?
I completely avoided the question about like, who is Gabe or why does Gabe do this, and just went straight for my mom is not proud of me and maybe she should be. But that's who I am. And you opened the door.
No, but I love that so much, Gabe, honestly, because you don't probably know anything about me, but my mother has schizophrenia and bipolar. And I also do public speaking, but from the opposite side, trying to help society understand her and destigmatize how they view her. And so I love how your journey is really about trying to destigmatize the world around you, really, so you can survive. And that's kind of the same for me, because I had to be okay being wild and being me, which I wasn't because my mom is wild and hurt, right? And it's all about that destigmatization.
Here's the real reality, and this is what we're all faced with. Crisis with mental illness is very public. If I have a breakdown in public, if I think that the soda machine is a dragon and I start screaming and throwing cans at it to save the children, because a dragon is going to eat the children and I'm a good person, somebody's going to call the police because I'm doing property damage. I'm a big guy and I'm yelling and I'm screaming and there's literal violence because I am throwing stuff, right? So now the police come and I'm like, oh, thank God you're here for the dragon. And the police grab a hold of me and I'm like, whoa, what are you doing? Oh, you're on the dragon side. So I fight back, which of course I think I'm still trying to save the people from the dragon. But in actuality, I've just assaulted a police officer. That's going to just like wildfire. That story is going to be everywhere. People are going to pull out their phones. It's going to go viral. Everybody's going to talk about that. I'm 46 years old. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder 20 years ago. I have gone to the grocery store with that soda machine no less than 1,000 times, and I have never had a viral video that said dude with bipolar disorder goes and buys his groceries and leaves everybody alone. So again, the crisis, very public. The last 20 years of boring life, very private. And this is why people think that people with mental illness can only be violent, problematic, loud, scary, because that's all we ever see. So I just wanted to show people a different side of it.
And that's why there's so many deaths. I mean, I'm getting so sick and tired of seeing all those mental ill guy in Illinois locked up for anything, dies, or, being emaciated. We had a guy, a mentally ill Native American here 10 years ago, who died at a gas station because he was disrupting people and the police shot him. And it's just like, makes me want to pull my hair out.
It's there. This is such a complex social problem because I really can see it from all sides. And that's a hard fought thing. I don't want anybody listening to this to think, oh, Gabe is so wise. He sees all the sides. No, Gabe started out only seeing his side and being really, really angry that nobody else saw my side. And through years of talking to people and conversation, setting my ego aside, setting my anger aside, and learning, I can see all sides. There are all the sides that I'm aware of. I don't want to say I can see all the sides because every day I'm learning about new sides that I was never aware of. But that said, just because I can see all the sides doesn't mean that I agree with them. It doesn't mean that I understand them. It doesn't mean that I think that all the sides are okay or equally valid. I understand where the public is coming from when they're fearful. I am a 250 pound, 6'3" giant of a man with a booming voice. If I start swinging, throwing, yelling, it is going to be scary. I would be worried if they were not scared of me. And now the police roll up on the scene and they see this. They see all these frightened people. There's a psychological response to seeing a whole bunch of frightened bystanders. And so now they're trying to figure out what to do. And then all of that anger and rage and energy is directed at them. And then something bad happens. When it plays out, I'm like, I can see exactly how it happened. Here's what I don't understand. We see this happen over and over and over and over and over again, yet we do the same game plan every time. Where's the education? Where are the resources? Where's the understanding? What can we do to minimize this? And I love analogies. I am huge on analogies, right? Do you remember the 1950s refrigerators? Like everybody's grandmother has one in their basement. The big ice boxes, right? The door was so incredibly heavy. And here's one of the features of those refrigerators. They click locked. There was a little click, right, that clicked into another thing. And the way that you opened it is you pulled up on the handle, which released that lever, which opened the door, which is great if you're on the outside of the refrigerator. If you're on the inside of the refrigerator, you're locked in. You're trapped. There's nothing you can do. Eventually, these refrigerators got old and they started carrying them out to the dump, right, or to the curb so that people could pick them up, and kids started playing in them. And they got trapped inside, and they're airtight, and they suffocated, and they died. And this was tragic, and this was a public health problem. And everybody looked at it and said, okay, clearly we don't want to get rid of refrigerators. Clearly the homeowner who put the refrigerator on the curb wasn't bad. Clearly the kids, it's an attractive nuisance, right? The children were just playing. Nobody meant for this to happen, but nevertheless, a tragedy happened. What can we do? Got it. Remove the door. When you drag it to the curb, cut the door off. That's protective factor number one. Protective factor number two, go back to the manufacturer and say, what can we do? How can we make these things openable from the inside? So if somebody's stuck inside, they can just push it with their hands, their feet, and get out. And now you can climb into any refrigerator you want, push on it, and it's going to open. The problem was resolved because we took a good hard look at it and not just started blaming people and pointing fingers. We're not doing this right now. Right now, it's the police's fault. We hate them. It's society's fault. We hate them. It's the mentally ill person's fault. We hate them. Everybody's just pointing fingers saying who we hate. Just stop it. Just fix the problem. Just fix it. You can hate on your own time. I just want to save my life and other people's lives. I don't really care whose fault it is. I want to prevent it from happening again. And as a society, we're just not there yet. We're still trying to figure out whose fault it is. And that rests on my shoulders and people like your mother's shoulders, because we're the ones who ultimately suffer by this lack of understanding and resources and, frankly, a solution.
Yeah. Oh my God, exactly. And it's so fear-based. That's 100%. The thing that I feel like when I talk about my mom's stuff, I deliberately tell stories that freak the audience out, but then I reframe it because people feel that fear response and then they sit within it. And that's that. If people were just terrified that, oh my God, refrigerators are bad, refrigerators are the problem, then nobody would buy a refrigerator. And then there'd be another health crisis because we're not buying a refrigerator. Now we have spoiled meat and we have whatever it is. Instead of, because a refrigerator isn't something you can blame, like you said, we don't then blame it. Then we look for the solution. And that's ultimately my goal, is to help people not see my mom as the problem, but to see the problem as the problem.
There is the key word. Let's move this away from mental illness for a moment and go into leadership training, right? Leadership training is just a big buzzword right now. There's lots of famous leadership speakers, corporate trainers. It's just all the rage, right? You know, just be a leader, not a boss. People follow leaders. People hate bosses. There's so many buzzwords, right? It's like bandwidth. You ever notice, like, I don't have the bandwidth for that right now. You don't know how bandwidth works. Everything goes through bandwidth. It just slows down. So you do, in fact, have the bandwidth. It will just take too long, right? But that's not what that word means. I don't have the bandwidth right now means that I'm not going to do it. And we just have to live with that. And IT people like me that have studied computer networking just have to be annoyed. But in that corporate training, for all of those leaders, they say, if a problem happens and the first question you ask is whose fault it is, you are not a good leader. The end. That is so figuring that out is later. And then when you get to later, right, you have to ask yourself, why are you looking for the blame? If it's so you can rip somebody a new one, tear somebody down, then no, you are also not a leader. You should only look to figure out where it went wrong after you've solved the problem and moved the needle forward. And you should only figure out whose fault it was in order to empower them not to make the mistake again and to solve the problem moving forward. If you are doing anything else, you are a boss and not a leader. Now, just take that whole thing, lift it up, smack it over on mental health. That's exactly it. Well, it's the mentally ill people's fault. They're not med compliant. Well, they're not doing what they're supposed to do. They're not going to their doctors. They're not going to therapy. Well, it's a police officer's fault. They don't care. They're not trained. They solve everything with the gun. Well, it's society's fault. They just think everybody's violent and they have stigma and discrimination and it's everybody's fault because they're afraid. And I'm like, wow, we're just nobody's trying to solve the problem. But y'all have lots of theories on whose fault it is. I mean, that's fantastic. That's not going to help me one iota, but I am enjoying the conversation.
I do though, and I'm curious your thoughts. And I don't necessarily know what the goal of this whole conversation was, but I'm enjoying it. So yeah. If you have questions, jump in. But
I make a podcast.
Right. I am curious your thoughts, Gabe, because I honestly, and this isn't like looking for a blame, except I am blaming money. I'm blaming money because what I've seen as a social worker within the mental health field, as a consumer of the mental health field, as a guardian and conservator of somebody involved in the mental health realm, I feel that money always comes with so many strings and so many, you can go down this, yes, we want you to change the problem, but you can only go down this path that we have created for you. And it doesn't matter if the problem's over here, you can solve it from way over here. And it's infuriating for me because I feel powerless within wanting to make a change because the leaders are powerless against deviating from the money.
Here's what's fascinating about the whole money conversation. And the first thing that I want to say is let's take a 30,000 foot view on this, right? I'm not going to start quoting stats and going into federal budgets and state budgets and municipality budgets and all of this. This is very high level, just something to think about. There's, like you said, people don't want to spend the money on it. And I always say, but we are spending the money on it. Incarceration is expensive. Yeah. Police response is expensive. EMT crisis is expensive. All of this stuff costs money. And if we're not preventing that, then we're spending the money over here. And whether you spend the money now or you spend the money later, you're still spending the money. But it sort of works like a credit card. If you pay cash now, it costs this amount. But if you charge it and pay it later, it goes up exponentially. And everybody sort of understands that with credit, but we don't seem to understand it in this realm.
But who stands to gain? That's my frustration is jails, they're privately owned. So someone stands to gain. Health insurance, privately owned. Someone stands to gain. In any environment that stands to gain from the consequences of not having preventative care, it's like somehow there's this paralysis of where we don't do the preventative care. And there's also human behavior, though predictable, not predictable enough for that preventative care to be able to say, look, I prevented all of these kids from going to jail. I prevented all of these mental health folk from being murdered, right? Because I can't prove that. Now,
right.
We know that it makes a difference, but I can't prove that Joe Schmo over there, who's going to be murdered in 3 years in a gas station fiasco, that he didn't get murdered because he provided preventative care. And so then it gets dicey because people want to put money into what works. Yet we don't want to put money into human care. Right? What?
Well, let's focus on that phrase right there. People want to put money into what works. I would argue that people want to put money into what they think works or what they can see. And again, remember, I love my analogies. When cars first came out, right, and people started buying cars, you obviously needed gas stations. And gas stations, when people would roll up to the gas station, they'd need 5 gallons of gas. And now you pull out the little thing and you got the little clock thingy, tick, 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 and it says that you've got 5 gallons and you said, okay, well, I've got 5 gallons, and you put the handle back and you drive on. But you never saw the 5 gallons. And here's the thing, back when cars were new, you did. They filled the 5 gallons into a giant jar and then they put it in your car. So you could physically see 5 gallons of liquid. Now, this became cumbersome. It became dangerous, especially as cars started taking more and more gas and needed, going faster and going longer distances and on and on and on. Moving gas around like this was not only inefficient, but it was also dangerous. There was gas fumes, risk of explosion, etc. And somebody thought to themselves, okay, we need to do something about this. Consumers do not trust the individual gas station owner is going to give them the right amount of gas, and that's why they want to see it. Okay, so what can we do? And that's when we came up with weights and measures. It's a federal agencies. There's a little sticker on every single gas pump, all in America, and it's literally their job to go out, randomly check, just show up with a 5-gallon bucket and pour in 5 gallons worth of gas. As long as there's 5 gallons worth of gas, they know that gas station is passed, and that raised consumer confidence, and we got rid of that danger. But imagine if we were just stuck on the no. We're going to put it into what works. And you're thinking, well, okay, 5 gallons of gas, so I've got a 15-gallon gas tank, so I just have to do that 3 times. How dangerous is that? Okay, well, maybe. I still think most people would think that is pretty dangerous, but fine. Okay, well, now you got an SUV with a 30-gallon gas tank. You okay doing it 6 times? Okay, well, you know what, Gabe? I'm not convinced. I think that 6 times is still okay. All right, introducing semi-trucks, 150-gallon tanks. Are we still okay with this method? Not to mention the time. This is very time consuming. People get mad when there is one person in front of them at the pump, right? Where the other person is going slow. I paid with a credit card. They're not pulling her car forward. But we got to wait for this gas, to fill it all the way up, then put it in your car. Fill it all the way up, put it in your car. And then it explodes. Now your car's on fire. But hey, nobody should come up with a better solution, because you know why? It's that lady's fault she blew her car up. She didn't do it right. We'll just blame her. This is all nonsense. And everybody hearing this thinks it's nonsense. But again, you lift that up and you put it over on a mentally ill person. It's like, well, yeah, it's their fault. Well, why didn't they listen? Why didn't they comply? Well, why didn't they take their medicine as prescribed? Why didn't they go to a doctor? Why didn't they do something about it? I don't know. Why isn't the government raising consumer confidence and helping these people? Right? You'll raise consumer confidence when it comes to making money and not having cars blow up. But when it comes to actual human life and individuals, you're like, well, I don't know. You were kind of busy, whatever. I don't get it.
Do you think it's because, at least in my experience, this is my opinion, but I'm curious yours. Do you think it's because of the unpredictability? Like, to me, when my mom because she has paranoid schizophrenia and bipolar, when she stopped taking her medication, which obviously, you know, the stats probably, but I know from experience, folks with bipolar, the mania feels great. And you don't need your medicine anymore. And it takes a while to really figure out that that is what regulates you. So it is common to stop taking your medication, very common, because it does feel good to feel the best you can feel. What was I going with that? Okay, so yeah, she would stop taking it, right? And she had this predictable sequence of events in the sense that she would stay up for about a week and cigarettes and so on all over, and then she would sleep for about a week, defecating in her bed, not even able to get out of bed. Yet it scared people because it was an unpredictable behavior. It didn't make sense to a logical mind. And I always try to help people understand that there isn't always logic that you can apply to it, but you don't need logic to be human, to have human decency.
Yeah. So I just want to address one thing just real quick and just say it and make sure that the audience hears it. It's okay to be scared. I'd be worried if you weren't scared, right? Like I said, just you come, the example that you used, you walk into a room, your mom, your sister, your friend, your loved one, somebody you care about, a fellow human being has shit the bed and they're screaming and wailing and they've been up for days and it's scary. I would be worried if the average person, non-medical provider who wasn't used to this, walked in, saw their loved one doing this and thought, oh, this is normal, right? Like, it's okay to be scared. There's nothing wrong. Where we start to get into wrong territory or negative territory or, could we have done better territory is when we're like, well, but she chose that. It's like, well, how do you mean? Well, I mean, the bathroom's right there. Nobody stopped her. Well, she chose to stop taking her meds. Well, that's a decision that she made, and that's why this is all her fault. Okay, well, now, does that line up with the facts? And people think that it does. They say things like, well, she chose to take her medication, or I'm sorry, she chose to not take her medication. And here's the thing on that one. They're half right. Right? She did choose to stop taking her medication, and that is problematic. But there's also all of these other factors that led to that decision. And that's the second thing that I want to touch on. You are 100% right. It is super well known that people with bipolar disorder experiencing mania, grandiosity, hypomania, or any heightened mood state will often go off their medication. Okay, that is a fact. That is a well understood, commonplace. It is just a fact. It is a well understood thing that this happens all the frickin' time. So, okay. So that leads us to the next question. What are we going to do about it? What? No, I mean, like you said that you know it, like this happens, like people with bipolar disorder commonly do that. So what's the preventative action that you as the medical provider, the therapist, the family member, the loved one, what's the preventative there? What are you going to do? What do you mean you don't know? What it's there for? No. You just said, like, I heard you. You said this was common and that you understood it. So clearly we've researched this and looked at, no, we blamed the sick person. That is messed up. And that's what I struggle with. It's right there. That's what I struggle with. It's well understood that if you get chemotherapy, you're going to vomit. And we have all of these preventatives. Right? We put you in the gown. We warn people, hey, your loved one is going to vomit for the next 2 or 3 days. Everybody carries around, emesis basins, little bags, right? We've got, towels everywhere so that, we don't let people lay down because one, we don't want them to choke on their own vomit, but it's easier for them to lean over, especially after chemo. We have all these preventative factors because we know the vomit is coming. But fuck it, let's just go the other way. They chose to throw up on themselves. Yeah, and I know that sounds so cruel, right? That I don't believe that. That's not true. Please, nobody say Gabe says it's okay for cancer patients to throw up. I'm just making the point that when people say it about people with mental illness, everybody's like, yeah, that's a good point. When people say it about cancer patients, like, that's cruel. They're both illnesses and they're both people.
Exactly. And that leads me to my next thought/question. Okay. When you were, how old were you when you were officially diagnosed?
I was 26 years old when I was officially diagnosed.
Okay. So you're 26 years old. at what point or what stage, and I hope that it was right away, but I doubt that it was right away. At what point did somebody actually sit down with you and discuss that diagnosis, what it really looks like, and how it plays out or can play out in your life, and normalize why you might have a tendency towards addictive behaviors, or why you might have a tendency towards, more of that wanting to go off your medication? Because as a clinician, it is something that infuriates me as well. So often, and this is within the clinical field, fucking diagnose your people and talk to them about their diagnoses. Like, this bullshit of not talking to them about their diagnoses is absurd. Don't just send off the diagnosis to the health insurance company and not sit down and dive through, go over, discuss in length how they feel that plays out, how you see it, and use that as a teaching moment. So going back, at what point did somebody do that for you? Or did they ever?
Well, first off, they gave me the pamphlet. I got this. Yeah, I got a pamphlet. You have bipolar disorder. Oh my God, that sounds so bad. No. Here's a trifold. Why didn't you say so? This one is it's a little bit of a difficult question for me to answer, and here's why. Because I always like to be super fair. I want to be very reasonable. I don't want to mislead anybody. I was diagnosed after being committed to a psychiatric hospital. So the first thing that I always say is that I was admitted to a psychiatric hospital. I was really sick. I was in a crisis point. You don't just get admitted to a psychiatric hospital and because you're doing well mentally. So it is certainly possible that some of this stuff could have happened. And I just have no recollection of it or memory of it. There was kind of a lot going on. As I'm fond of telling people, 24 hours before I was admitted to a psychiatric hospital, I didn't think I was mentally ill at all. I thought I had zero mental illness. Mental illness was something that happened to other people who came from bad homes that had a look. There was rocking back and forth. There was drooling, antisocial. You were basically the Joker from Batman. My family, everybody around me, we did not think that I had a mental illness. And that's what I believed literally an hour before I was admitted to a psychiatric hospital. And this is while I was actively suicidal. I even thought wanting to kill myself was normal, and that my mother and my grandmother would celebrate at my funeral because I finally made a good choice. Like, I thought they'd be proud of me because I weighed like all the pros and cons. Like, Gabe really did a good thing here. Like, he really took stock and he ended his life and got out of the way and made room for the next people. We're really proud of him. Like, that's what I thought was going on. And even then, I thought I was perfectly normal. So those first few weeks.
Wait, hold on. I have to interrupt you.
Okay.
Because you are and you were normal.
Well, I did. I struggle with that whole. I don't want that to be normal.
No. But to me, normal is whatever you are.
I was normal for a severely mentally ill man that needed to be hospitalized. It's tough. In fact, for those of you, I just have to I happen to sit it here. This is an initiative that me and my friend from Michelle Hammer from Schizophrenic NYC defined normal. And when we did this on our podcast several years ago, it was a couple of years before COVID, and you'll know this for a fact here in a minute. We used to go around the country and we would just stand outside and ask people to define normal. That's it. That's all we would say. We'd say, hey, can we ask you a question? They would say, sure, define normal. They'd say, what do you mean? No, just define normal. That's the only question. Well, how are you nope, just tell us what normal is. And the reason that we did that is because just literally hundreds of people, I don't think anybody gave the same answer.
No, because normal is your perception. It is your reality.
Yeah, exactly. It was normal for me. It was really normal for me.
Our first podcast episode was called "What is Normal?" because you had no idea how to podcast.
Yeah. here is the I always love the normal conversations. I'm always going to love the normal conversations. So I don't mean to segue back, but the original question of was I given the supports that I need? The answer is kinda. And so first off, kinda is unacceptable. Like, I want to be very clear, kind of is unacceptable. Well, one of the things that people say is that, well, we don't want to explain their diagnosis to them when we first give it to them because they might not be in the position to hear it. Very valid, right? If somebody is diagnosed with schizophrenia while suffering psychosis, yeah, you can't, they're suffering like you can't explain. Okay, but is anybody keeping track of this to figure out when they can explain it? Oh no, that's not being done. Why not? And when it is being done, then we get to the second question is, was it done correctly? And by correctly, I mean very patient driven. Some people might need a 5-minute explanation and they're like, you know what? I understand. I know what's going on. I've got it. Thank you. And other people might need weeks. They might need months. Hell, they might need years. You just don't know. And we're very uncomfortable with that. We really like the idea that, okay, if X happens, we'll press button A. If Y happens, we'll press button B. And it's like, well, but okay, but what if that doesn't work? No. I mean, it was very clear. If X happens, we press button A. Like, you're just repeating yourself over and over again. You're right. You're not listening and you've become belligerent. Well, what is happening here? And this is, we just end up in this cycle. And for patients, it's tough to be a mental health patient. It's tough to be mentally ill because, the best I can achieve is got my shit together. That's it. That's my pinnacle. That's my Everest. I got my shit together. If I'm doing poorly, it's my fault. If I'm doing well, I have an exceptional doctor, therapist, medical staff, right? There's that's it. That's it. It's always my fault when it goes wrong. And it's always the pharmaceutical company, the therapist, the doctor, the whomever, if I'm doing well. First, I was causing my family problems. Then I got my shit together. That's it. That's what I can look forward to.
Now you've got a podcast that pays you money. You've got a really good doctor.
This has been in my email, right? This is... And here's the thing. Here's what sucks. I'm willing to share. I have an incredible doctor and I have an incredible therapist and I have learned incredible coping skills from other peers, other people with bipolar disorder at support groups. I have read incredible articles online. I have listened to incredible podcasts. I was inspired by Carrie Fisher, who wrote a book, Wishful Drinking. She lived with bipolar disorder. So she was incredible in my recovery. All of those things are true, but I want some credit in there too. Why does everybody look outside of Gabe for why Gabe got well? And that it's, look, I want to give credit where credit's due. I needed all of those things and those people were, but when you beat cancer, nobody says you had a hell of an oncologist. She beat cancer. She did it. She's a warrior. She's a cancer warrior. She beat cancer. There's no mention of doctors. There's no mention of hospital, nothing. She beat cancer is the whole headline. But, you reach recovery with bipolar disorder, your therapist must be amazing.
Which is so funny because, not funny, haha.
No, it's funny, interesting.
Like funny. It's so funny because I work at a school. I work at a behavioral school, which probably doesn't surprise you. And so often, the kids, it's interesting being on the flip side of this because I so much want to empower them to see that they are the ones that did all the hard work. Like, we just gave them suggestions and tools. They didn't have to use them, and many of them choose not to. But the ones who choose to succeed, it's solely because of them, because we're all just kind of learning from each other. And so that flipping that within society and helping society understand that, yeah, you are diagnosed with bipolar, no different than somebody diagnosed with gestational diabetes or just diabetes, nonetheless, right? And I don't know why I said gestational, but because I had it, maybe. No different than somebody diagnosed with diabetes who is taking their insulin every day, we're not going to be like, oh, God, your doctor's so fucking great for prescribing you insulin that you're taking every day. Yeah. Or I say, good for you for taking it every day and taking care of your mental or your physical health and taking stock in what you eat and choosing the right things. Same for mental health. So you're right. And the onus should be put on the individual, the person who is doing the hard fucking work. Nobody else is living your life. Look at you, 26, suicidal, have no idea that there's any sort of struggle. And now, 20 years later, you're fucking talking about it so openly and saying, boom, there is that. I'm not even going to talk about my shit. I'm also going to talk about your shit. Like, that's awesome.
I super appreciate it, but I do want to give you one tiny correction. You know, a rising tide raises all ships, right? So people are like, "Oh, thank you, Gabe, for representing us," and I appreciate the thank you. Like I'm super proud, and I want to help all of us. I really, really do. But I always point out, you know, I'm in that group. Like I'm not doing this out of the goodness of my heart. If I make life better for people who live with mental illness, my life gets better. That is a huge motivator for me. And I really just like to point that out to people because I don't know. It's like on a podcast when you have sponsored content. I really like to say, like, now a word from our sponsor. Let me tell you about XYZ. I want people to know the difference between, like, Gabe is just talking about it because he likes it and Gabe is being paid to talk about it. So I sort of like have that like welling up in me. Like, I want you to know that I do this because it's really beneficial to me. I'm super glad it's beneficial to others as well, but I feel the need to be transparent that it helps me a lot. Plus it's a good job and I like to talk. So
and you also have the strength and the courage to do it. You know, I had a speaker one time because I talk about my struggles with my mom growing up with her, or I had a audience member come up and say, I don't know how you do that. I could never talk about my struggles. I said, but you don't have to. That's why I'm doing it. Like, I'm doing it for you so that you can hopefully benefit from somebody pointing out, you know, the things that aren't working within society, the problems within society. So look at you. That's awesome.
Thank you. I like to get this message out that we all need to do exactly what we can do, nothing more and nothing less. And not everybody has to start a podcast. Not everybody has to share their story. Not everybody has to speak to audiences. It can be as little as you go to a support group, even though you're feeling well. And you're like, well, why is that because often when people are doing well, they don't go to a support group. We're all guilty of it. When I'm having a great day, I'm like, I can skip the support group this week. I'm fine. Now that is a fair and reasonable decision. But here's the sort of the flip side of that. It means that often the people in the support groups aren't doing well, which means that often people are sitting in a room with people who are not doing well. And it creates this sort of this echo chamber of hopelessness. Like I keep coming to the support group and I'm never seeing anybody do well. So one of the things that you can do is just go back to the support group for another, 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks after you're doing well and you feel that you don't need it anymore, so that you can say during your check-in, hi, my name is Gabe and I live with bipolar disorder. And it's been a really good week. My wife and I did X. I walked the dog. Work gave me a little bit of trouble on Monday, but you know what? I used this new coping skill and I got through it. If for no other reason than the people can see you living with bipolar disorder and doing well, or to offer that coping skill, or just to share a different perspective. And people think, well, but that's not enough. No, that's huge. It is huge. You write a letter to the editor, right? The next time somebody says something that is mildly offensive, just sashay up to them and say, hey, I heard you say that the weather's schizophrenic. May I ask why you use that? And they're like, well, because X, Y, and Z is happening. It's like, well, I can understand that. I can see why you use that word, but people live with schizophrenia, and when they hear that, it kind of makes them feel certain ways. Well, what do you mean? Well, consider X, Y, Z, and just have a little conversation. Don't attack them. Don't yell at them. Don't try to shame them or make them feel bad. Just nicely, kindly, privately point it out and have a little conversation. And they may say whatever and walk away, but gets the gears turning. And if you do that with enough things, somebody's going to be like, that is a really interesting point. And I always like to share, I know this works. And here's how I know this works. I am a cisgendered white male. I am literally a middle-aged man. And the number of people who have sashayed up to me and said, Gabe, why do you feel that way? And I say XYZ, and they say, well, look at it this way. And I'm like, holy shit, that was misogynistic. I had no idea. Or holy shit, that was racist. I had no idea. But because they took the time to educate me, I know better, I can do better. We have to do the same thing in mental health. I don't believe that everybody out there saying offensive things has malice in their heart. I really don't. I think it's based on ignorance and based on believing pop culture and misunderstanding. And we're seeing this play out in so many areas of our society. But since we're talking about mental health, just be that person. That's a super important person to somebody. And all of these things will move the needle. But listen, if you want to start a podcast, really low barrier to entry. You need like a $99 podcasting kit you can get on Amazon. And I think like a $5 a month hosting account. They even have free ones. There you go. You're a podcaster. I know I'm inspiring our competition. It's going to be terrible. We're going to just...
You know, it's so funny. You said that thing about schizophrenia. And I tell the story. I had a professor in my master social work program. And she called the class schizophrenic. She's like, I'm sorry, the class has been so schizophrenic today. And I actually waited till everybody left the room. And I talked to her afterwards. And just as you just said, I said that exact thing. Like, my mother is diagnosed with schizophrenia. And this in no way is comparable to the struggles that she has. And I just want you to know so that you don't continue to use that phrasing, because there might be somebody who isn't quite as kind as I am. But to your other point,
and was she receptive? I just, for the audience, did the conversation go well? Did you have a?
It went really, really well, and she was extremely apologetic and very thankful, and was just like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't even think about that. I wasn't even like, it was just chaotic." And I said that would be a really great word to describe the class moving forward, because it just really. It isn't the same, especially having met somebody grown up with somebody with schizophrenia. Not at all.
Exactly.
Easy. That, not so much.
And I wish that more stories like that went viral. And that's why I point it out as often as I can, because normally the stories that go viral are somebody picks up the phone and they're like, you're not going to believe what this bitch did today. I was sitting in my social work class at OSU in class number 705, and Dr. Stevenson did the fall, and then like. Oh my God, fire her. And everybody is screaming and everybody is yelling. And in the meantime, poor Dr. Stevenson is like, okay, well, now I got to defend my livelihood, my job, right? It goes from, let's discuss a mistake that I made and that I want to discuss. And it goes into this big thing, and everybody's screaming and everybody's yelling. And here's the thing. There have been so many of those videos that have gone viral, and we still have the problem. They're not working, right? Somebody racks up a lot of clicks and a lot of hits and whatever. And in the meantime, no one is learning anything. I wish your video, I know you didn't make a video, but I wish your video, I hope this goes viral, talking about how a kind person-to-person conversation actually changed the way this person, she's like, I'm going to use chaotic from now on. Because they say that these things go viral because they want to change and make life better, but do they?
Well, and let's be honest, similar to what you said, but as a cis white male, you know, people come to you and explain to you, oh, hey, that phrase, not okay. And so often when we don't grow up within those environments, knowing that isn't correct, or we grow up with antiquated role models, right? And that, how are we supposed to learn? I personally have made so many fucking mistakes in my life that I very much like to assume, until proven wrong, that everyone is doing their best. And that's ultimately my biggest message with folks with mental health issues, is they're doing their best in this moment. And when I came to her with that assumption, you know, it's just, I know you're doing your best, but here's a learning moment. Just like we would a child. I know you're doing your best, but don't hit. You don't have to hit. We can use our words, right? If we just assume that everybody's trying their hardest with what they have, but too often we get stuck in our own mindset of, well, I grew up in a white middle-class family, and if you didn't eat breakfast, it was because you chose to not get up on time, rather than, oh, Timmy's at home because his parents didn't come home and got all of his siblings ready to go to school and didn't have time to eat breakfast, and that's why he's hungry, right? So
we can only see the world through the lens of our own eyes, and we really need to understand that, right? Everything that I do, I can only see the world from these eyes, my eyes. That's it. Everything else, somebody has to tell me, right? They have to tell me. And this idea that society has that everybody should just know, I really think gets us in a lot of trouble, because how? I just can't know. And we seem to understand it in other areas, right? Like if somebody comes up to you and says, hey, I don't know how to hook up a television, but I know that you're a television installer. And the person's like, oh yeah, let me help you. Let me tell you how to install the television. Nobody like rolls their eyes. How could you not know? I install 1,000 televisions a day, right? Plumbers aren't getting mad at people for not knowing how to install toilets. And and of course, everybody loves to talk to firemen because they're, firefighters, because they see, I did it. I said firemen, right? It's so easy, right? So, but everybody likes to talk to firefighters. They got the truck, it's got a steering wheel in the back. How do you have a driver in the front, a driver? I have so many questions. And firefighters are excited to teach it to you and show it to you. And we even go on field trips we slide down the pole. And it's wonderful. But we need that. We need that for mental health. I just want people to tour my fire station. That's it. I want them to ask questions. I want them to learn. I want them to be interested. I want them to say all of the offensive things that are in their head right to me so I can give them feedback. I can give them another way. I can share my story. And listen, they can think I'm wrong. That's fine. I'm not looking to raise fans. I'm looking to raise critical thinkers. And if you think about what I say and disagree with me, that's wonderful, because you've applied what I said to your life, meaning you're a critical thinker, which means I've done my job of giving you information, and you've done your job of applying it. Please, nobody should blindly follow anyone, least of all me. Sincerely, I mean that as, 1, don't blindly follow anyone. 2, don't blindly follow people with bipolar disorder on the internet. But learn from them. Take it. Pass it through your critical skills filter, and take what you want and leave the rest. It's a buffet.
Well, I love that safety of, say all of the offensive thoughts you have. Whenever I give my presentation, I always ask, hey, maybe you think of somebody with schizoaffective disorder, which is schizophrenia, helpless, bipolar. What do we think of? And this is to a room of professionals. Guess how many people raise their hand to tell me what they think of?
None. Yeah, they're afraid.
Bro.
They think it's a trap.
They do think it's a trap. And it's very frustrating for me. Although I can also understand, I wouldn't want to raise my hand to look like the asshole, right? Because you don't want to look like an asshole, but there are certain things that they get stuck in their brain that may or may not be accurate, but may or may not be accurate, right? Like there is a difficulty in maintaining, consistent medication because the mania does feel well. Okay, great. Let's talk about why that is and how can we prevent people from struggling moving forward. If you don't share your thoughts, how can anybody help you reframe them and repurpose them? And how can we solve the problem if we don't even know what the problem is?
Exactly. 100%. We have a communication problem in this country. Like the whole country needs marriage counseling. I mean, sincerely, it's a communication issue. And honestly, I want to go back to what I said before, because it really is the core of my advocacy. I don't believe that the majority of the problems that we have are coming from a place of malice. I think they are coming from a place of fear. I think they are coming from a place of misunderstanding. And I think they're coming from a place of people believe that they know what's going on, because it's so easy when you think it's the person's fault. I am a human. I live on Earth. I love a good comeuppance, right? I love it when the person cuts me off in traffic and speeds around me. And then like I drive a half a mile down the road and they got pulled over by a police officer. I love that. You cut me off speeding. Ha ha, you got a ticket. I live in this society, right? But what if then later on somebody calls me up and says, you realize the reason they were speeding is because they were racing to the hospital. And that thing that you saw as the comeuppance, the police officer pulling them over, actually prevented them from getting there. And that thing that you celebrated as, ha ha, that's the comeuppance, what was actually very damaging and very detrimental. And you are perpetuating that over and over and over again. And I'm like, oh, that comeuppance was less fun. And these are the pieces that I want people to understand. Look, we're all human. We can't help it, right? We all want people to quote unquote get what they deserve. But more often than not, we have formed what we think people deserve based on misinformation, half-truths, rumors, innuendo, and what little we see of people. And it's no way to be compassionate, and it's no way to help people, and it's no way to move this forward. I'm not saying it's not difficult. I get angry. I get upset. I get annoyed. I get pissed off. I've yelled at a TV or two or three. But it's a goal, and it's my goal. And I think it's
always the people getting what they deserve. You know, and this is a question for the audience kind of permitting on, but feel free to answer. That getting what you deserve oftentimes is that negative consequence, right? It's rarely do we think, well, they better get what they deserve for a positive thing. You know, we're not out there showering everybody all the money and all the fame and all the wealth and all the love and security and safety that they desire. We're not like, oh yeah, they should fucking get what they deserve. They're fucking badass, right?
Well, now hang on. Society is really invested in professional sports players getting the contracts they deserve. We get really angry when a baseball player only gets 30 million when they deserve 35 million. So I don't know what you're talking about there. We fight really hard for the millionaires in this. No, you're absolutely right. You are just we love to see negative. We as a society love to see negative things happen, right? We love the comeuppance. We love when people we have so many words for it, but you're right. We watch people right now work 40-hour jobs with side hustles and they have no health insurance. And we're debating whether or not that's a good thing. This is not a good thing. If you have a full-time job, you deserve health insurance. But I'm going to go a step further. If you have no job and you sit on your ass all day, you deserve health insurance. I don't understand this concept of denying people health care, but we're debating it at the highest levels of our government right now. I do want people to get what they deserve. I think people deserve a strong public safety net, health insurance, health care, and the opportunity to live their best life. And for people like me, I was just so lucky to have health care and to have good parents and to have resources. And one of the only reasons I'm sitting here today is because I had those protective factors. And the fact that there are so many people right now with serious and persistent mental illness that don't have health insurance, meaning they don't have access to care, meaning their odds of getting to Gabe status, to reach recovery, to get better, to get well, is a lot lower. And that is frankly unconscionable and unfair.
To have a paying podcast and not be in their mom's basement.
Right. Like nobody wants to live in my mom's basement. I don't know about their moms, but my mom's basement is, my mom doesn't even have a basement. That's what's messed up. Like, I'm like, Mom, you don't even have a basement. You live in Tennessee. There's no basements there because of the water table. So are you burying me under the house? Like, I haven't been able to look my mom in the eyes for a while.
I love that you talked about what like where you're grateful, because I think for people that do have, you know, the better things in life, which is so fucked up, like just having, you know, healthy parents and health insurance. I mean, that's really
the better things, right? You're just these are basic human necessities, but we have now rebranded them as luxury items.
Right. But it's still so good that you're able to point that out and just, hey, you know, that acknowledge that you do have that. And to your point about, I don't even remember what it was about, but it made me think about, I sound like I'm drunk, but I'm really not, I promise.
I can vouch for that. She's not drinking. I mean, not alcohol. I just want everybody to know, just in case you need a white man to tell everybody that you are not drinking. I will do that for you. All right. See, now you should politely pull me aside and be like, what the hell was that? In fact, you might want to just edit that out. That joke might not land at all.
I liked it. We're going to leave with that. Yeah, we're going to leave it. As a white man, everybody should listen to him. One thing I always like to tell people is you can tell a lot about yourself, but a lot about a person based on how they interact with homeless people. Do you ignore them? Do you hide your face? Do you tell them they should pull themselves up by their bootstraps? If you don't have money or have anything, do you even look at them and smile? Do you acknowledge that they are human? And to me, it's huge, because if I don't have money, I feel bad not having money to give to them, because to me it's important. I have a homeless uncle with schizophrenia. And I know a lot of times it is mentally ill related. And I also know our society doesn't fully support that in any other capacity. So, if I'm making money, why can't I give a little? It's not like they're sitting out there with a fucking PhD saying, fuck the man, pay me, nobody's fucking doing that. And if they are, then they can go ahead and, they figured out a hole in the game and they're fucking with it, right? Maybe we all need to learn from how to sound out of the one. But you can tell a lot about a person, or can you look at them and just acknowledge that they're human and say, God bless you. I don't have any money. Because they always say, God bless you. It seems to always be paying. God bless. Like I had almost I gave them $7 yesterday, actually. And I was real worried because the light had turned green. And I was like, fuck. So I'm holding it out. Like and he's running at me. Like, whoa. And the car in front of me is like, well, what's happening? Like they started slowing down. Like, Jesus, it's coming to me. Whoa, thank you, God bless her. Like he's trying to get up before I have to go. Because he was worried about me getting through the door. Right. Anyway, that story doesn't really have much relevance except for the fact that just treat people with decency and kindness and burden.
I think it has a lot of relevancy. Harry, this is the little bow tie that I would put on this, right? Look how our culture, forget about individuals, look how our government, how our society, and how our culture treats homeless people. We claim to be the richest and most powerful nation on the literal planet, right? We're number one. We love to say it. We have all kinds of songs written about it, right? And we literally have our citizens sleeping under bridges and dying when it gets cold. That does not scream wealth to me. That does not scream number one to me. And I always point out that if you heard about a family that had a child who slept outside and then froze to death in the winter, you would think that family was awful. And you would want to know why that family did that. You have a country that does that. And you're like, well, yeah, we're number one. I don't want anybody to say that I'm not patriotic. I sincerely do love my country, but I am ashamed of some of the decisions that our government makes. Because why are we not putting resources into this? Why aren't people our top priority? And I don't have an answer for that. I don't have anywhere to go with this, except that this is why we need to write our senators. This is why we need to write our politicians. This is why we need to put pressure. And this should not be a partisan issue. This should be a bipartisan issue. Take care of humans. Take care of American citizens. Take care of people who are suffering, right? This should be an easy lift in a country that proclaims itself to be Christian. This should be so simple. And yet people are like, well, I don't know. What are you doing? What do you mean you don't know? Help the people. Just help.
But they're taking advantage, Gabe. That's what it is. We should pay that baseball player $35 million rather than pay him $30 million or even fucking $5 million. Jesus, you can do a lot. But I don't think I've made $5 million in my adult career. at all as a fucking social worker on the ground. Pay him $5 million and spend that on a $30 million on the people. Oh no, just an idea.
Listen, I think that is going too far. I think we should still pay that baseball player the $35 million, but then we should tax him. I don't understand how the tax rates got so ridiculously low for the wealthy. And I'm sincerely, and I mean this, and I want to make sure, listener, I'm not trying to be political. I'm not picking a political side. I'm not trying to start a political debate. And that's what angers me whenever I bring this up. I'm like, listen, and they're like, oh my God, you're a liberal. Oh, you're a GOP or you're a conservative. I'm like, no, I do not want these to be partisan issues. I want every single political party in in our nation to sit down and answer this question. Why is it okay to let American citizens die? Why? Just answer me that question. Don't just answer the question straightforward. Nope, that's doublespeak. Figure it out. I don't care which side does it. I will be proud of whatever side does it, but I will be super proud if y'all get together and do it together because you're all Americans. That's why we elected you. Like, that's what I want my political party to be, America. But listen, we've now we're verging into a political podcast. I've already turned off half the people because they think I'm a member. Like, oh, I hate him because he's X.
Oh, well, you obviously have no idea who our listeners are.
I hope your listeners love me, but if they don't, I'm sorry. I back down super easy.
Don't be sorry at all. And in fact, I 100% agree with you about the taxing. To me, it doesn't make sense if both of my kids work their ass off running a lemonade stand and they put the same amount of effort and one gets $5 and one gets $20. I take $1 from each one of them. Like, what? How? Because I need $2? Well, what? Anyway, so I 100% agree. And unfortunately, this isn't, all of us trying to figure out how to put politics into mental health. It's already there. It's already a piece of it. It's already impacting the mental health system. Politics are.
Exactly.
They just kind of go hand in hand. And it does suck. It sucks how people are treated. It sucks how people respond. And there's got to be a better way if we all just kind of assume that everybody's doing their best. If we all just think that, you'd be amazed. Like, if I look at the Holland guy, I think he's doing his best. Yeah, he's having a good day. Right. I'm going to say, good job, Bernie. And if he wants to spend the $5 like given on fucking cigarettes and booze, fuck it. I spend the money I get on cigarettes and booze. Like, why can't he? Like, why does he not get? I mean, fuck. If I was sleeping under a bridge, I would fucking want some booze too. Make it easier to sleep. Yeah. It's a noise out.
It's incredible to me the amount of policing that people do for things that are frankly past their purview, right? So here's charity. I did something for you. That's where my part ends, right? Now you do something. Now listen, I do have the right not to participate. I don't want to take agency away from people, but ask yourself why you don't want to participate. And there are many valid reasons, right? I can't participate in all the things that I'm asked to participate. So one of my reasons for not participating is time, resources. If I donated to every charity that asks, I'd be broke, right? And I need to eat. I really, really like food. But if the reason that you're doing it is because you're being judgmental with your charity, then that isn't the charity for you. And make space for other people. Don't get angry, though. That's the thing that I never understand. People are like, look, I choose not to donate to this charity. That's perfectly acceptable. But then they get mad at other people for doing so. That's just, it's such a fool's errand, right? You're just borrowing all of this negativity and all of this. Just focus on your own goals. Figure out the charity that is most important to you and spend your time on that. It should be no surprise to anybody that I spend the majority of my time, I would argue 99% of my time, on mental health and mental illness charities. It is super important to me. That's where I put my love and where I put my resources. And that's what I do. And I am so thankful to be surrounded by other people who put their time and attention into charities that they are equally passionate about, from from homelessness to hunger to education to LGBTQ to social justice and on and on and on. If we all find but I'm not judging them and they're not judging me. We just all stay in our lanes and do our own thing and support each other in whatever way we can. We're just, it's the judgment. It's the judgment that gets me because it's such a distraction.
It is. And it's such a good way to put it. It's a distraction from what the real concern is.
Exactly. I have to go in like 1 minute. I am so sorry. Just do we need to wrap up? Let's wrap up.
Yeah.
Sorry. I just looked down. I'm like, oh shit. I am so sorry.
No, that's okay. So we like to go over we have mugs and we like to go over them really quick and then we'll say our goodbye. So, my mug says, today is your day. So for me, how that applies to today's message is today's your day to make a difference in the life of someone else, a positive difference in the life of someone else. Smile at the stranger, compliment their shoes, give a smile to a homeless person or money to a homeless person, or donate your time or high five or whatever it is. Just acknowledge the human experience and understand that we're all just doing our best. Today is your day to do that.
I love that.
Mine is been there, done that. So I say, take this with an angry face. When I say, you see someone with an angry face, assume that you are in their shoes and imagine why they did that. You know, embrace somebody like giving a criticism or critique where someone's opposite than you, homeless, you know, working a whole bunch as a bajillionaire. Imagine that you are in them and ask, what? Like, I've been there, done that. Why are they doing that?
I would have done my best.
Yeah, and they're doing their best. I'm going to do my best.
I like that.
And if they're angry, then
I love that. I want to play the mug game too. My mug is just my mug with my logo on it because I'm self-promoter. Yeah, absolutely. So it's the BiPolar logo. It's because you've got your sad face, right? And then over on this side, I'm doing it terribly. You've got a happy face, right? And then with bipolar disorder, of course, you're vacillating back and forth. So that's like the spectrum of bipolar disorder. And that's my little logo. And if I may, oh, thank you so much. You can buy this on my website, but don't buy it. You know, the mugs, they break in shipping. I mean, they're only $15. And if it breaks, I'll send you another one. But here is my pride and joy. Mental Illness is an Asshole and Other Observations by Gabe Howard. It's 380 pages of awesome. I highly recommend. I mean, the book makes a thud. I mean, look at the thickness of that thing. It's real good. You can get it on Amazon because everything is on Amazon. But if you head over to gabehoward.com, that's my website, you can learn all about me, watch videos, find my podcast, and you can buy the book there and I'll sign it. And I'll throw in stickers and everything else I have in my basement. I will just mail to you in an envelope. But no, sincerely, if you buy the book off me, I will sign it. I will put in stickers and I will mail it, or you can grab it on Amazon. But I really do think it's a cool book, and I hope that your listeners will like it too.
I love that. And honestly, Gabe, thank you so much for this, for being your goofy self, for showing up today with just all of who you are, and for being a part of our little humble podcast. It means a lot to us. We also want to thank our listeners for liking, sharing, and subscribing. Go to Gabe's website, buy his book, get the free stickers because we all like free. And don't forget to just spread kindness and love each other. And just remember, we're all doing our best. Oh, free stickers!
It's super cool. Check it out. And look, I have so many. So you know I'm not lying when I say I'll give them to you free. I mean, this is just what I have like sitting next to it. Yeah, I can make it sticker ring. Yeah. Wouldn't that have been cool if I would have done it the other way? But now they're everywhere. I mean, look at this. There's no way I'm picking that up. Thank you both so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I had a really, really good time.
We appreciate you.
All right, bye.
Thank you.